Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 98 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive that they still think digital watches are a pretty neat idea. This planet has, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Most of the people living on it were unhappy for pretty much of the time. Many solutions were suggested for this problem, but most of these were largely concerned with the movements of small green pieces of paper, which was odd because, on the whole, it wasn't the small green pieces of paper that were unhappy. And so the problem remained. Lots of the people were mean, and most of them were miserable, even the ones with digital watches. Welcome to Sentimental Fools. Okay? All right. Welcome back. Today we have something very special to talk about, something very special to me. Okay? Today we're going to talk about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, my friends, okay? And we're going to talk about Douglas Adams, one of my personal creative heroes, one of my first major creative inspirations in my life, okay? I owe my love of reading to Douglas Adams. Before I read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I had read other books, I had enjoyed other books, but none that made me feel the way that Hitchhikers made me feel. None that I felt resonated with me to such a degree that I was drawn in so completely, so much pleasure, so much love, that it just carried me on to search for that feeling in other works of fiction, in other books, for the rest of my life. Now, if you're not familiar with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I don't know what you're doing with your life. You know, I don't know what kind of stuff you're into, but it probably sucks ass. You know, probably shortchanging yourself. You're probably watching a bunch of brain rotty nonsense. And as nice as that can be, treat yourself. Treat yourself to one of the most balanced, interesting, funny, secretly philosophical, oddly metaphysical joy rides of a series of books that I have seen. Go read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and its subsequent sequels. Go treat yourself, please. You deserve it, okay? You deserve it. Go have some fun, all right? Go out, go get yourself a coffee and sit down and read these books, okay? Anyway, first I would love to tell you the story of how this book came into my life, okay? I read this, I think I was a sophomore, either a sophomore or a junior in high school, is when I first read this. And it was thanks to someone I knew at the time, a classmate, a schoolmate, right? Who had read all of the books, and through the conversations we had, could just tell that how much I would enjoy these. He could just tell. And so he very sweetly let me borrow his Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy omnibus, big old thick fella. All the books together. And I just, God damn it. I fell in love. Just first page. First page, I absolutely fell in love. And before I go deeper into that, because there's more to say there, I will say my first exposure to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was the major motion picture. Okay? With Sam Rockwell and as Zaphod and all those other people, whatever. I forget a lot of their names. Zooey Deschanel as Trillian, right? And it was one of those things that when I saw the preview for the film, it's just one of those things. I'm sure you know what this feels like, where you see it and you're like, oh my God, that is for me. That is for me. And not in that, narcissistic, like they wrote it just for you kind of way, like they're speaking to me directly, but just the degree to which it resonated with my sensibilities, with my sense of humor and interests. I could just tell from like 2 seconds into the trailer for the film that I'm like, oh my God, I love everything about this, the vibe, everything. I need to see what this movie is. And when I found out it was called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I mean, just the title, it evokes so much of the vibe of the stories, right? This simultaneously, this grand, this grand world, this grand universe, right? These big ideas mixed in, blended perfectly with very small, relatable, grounded ideas, right? Hitchhikers, galaxy, And so I was drawn in immediately. And I went to see it in theaters, and that was my first exposure to the to those stories. And as time went on, I came to find that people have a lot of mixed feelings about the film. And I see where a lot of them are coming from. They added a couple things that weren't in the book. They moved some things around, but Douglas Adams was involved in writing the screenplay, right? So these were things that were cleared by Douglas Adams. It was just, these changes were made so that it was a tight film that left you feeling like you had a complete experience, right? And so I'm not too mad at it, and I still like it. As much as, it's interesting. So they also did a television series on the BBC back in the day that stuck way closer to the book. And I've watched that as well. And so when I'm reading the book now, what I imagine is a mashup of characters, some from the television show, some from the film. So I know a lot of people like the television Zaphod. I like Sam Rockwell. I fucking do. I love his attitude. He played the part so good. Just that stupid brilliance, that just idiot genius kind of thing, He played it so well. So yeah, Zaphod, Sam Rockwell in my head. Trillian, I didn't like either of them. I don't like Zoe. I didn't like the actress from the television series. So Trillian is custom. Arthur, I think his name's Martin Freeman, right? I couldn't remember that earlier, but I think that's his name, right? Yeah, he's my Arthur, 100%. He's perfect Arthur. I'm so glad he got to play that role. And Ford Prefect is not Mos Def. I think I think he did a fine job, but the Ford Prefect from the television series, again, perfect. Perfect. Absolutely. I love it. So anyway, just some tidbits there. And so the movie will always hold a place in my heart because it's what introduced me to the stories at all. So yeah, when I was, talking to my friend, my classmate in high school, he asked me if I'd ever read the books, and I said no, and he's like, well, you must, good sir. And so he lent me the omnibus, and I think I read it all the way through twice before I gave it back to him. And it was a big, heavy book, but it was a constant in my school backpack for months as I pored over the pages and read it and reread it. I carried it with me everywhere. In every spare moment I had, I was opening it up and I was getting back in there. Such incredible pleasure. It's not too often that you come across something like that in your life that you're just so excited to have a bit of free time. I mean, everybody's excited to have some free time, but to have something to do with your free time that you are so excited, you can't wait to get there, right? You do like a better job at the work you have to do so that you can have your free time with less clutter in your head so that you can enjoy what you're doing as much as possible, So it was very special. And this character who lent me this book, incredibly memorable character in my high school memories. What an interesting fellow. Just to give you an example, hey, if you're out there watching this, you know who you are, you little son of a gun. I never forgot you. Okay, I think about you a few times a year for sure, and I've told other people my favorite memories of you many times because they just tickle me to no end. So one year for Halloween, he came to school dressed up as like a war veteran with no arms, right? Got both his arms blown off in combat. And so he had his arms inside the fatigues and then just the flaps, stapled over. And he did not do any work all day because he did not have any arms. And the teachers would come up to him and be like, why aren't you doing this, that, or the other? And he's like, I don't have arms, sir. And they kind of let him get away with that. Because you can't deny, the commitment, the humor. They're just like, you know what? You have your day. You've earned this one, He was a character. And at some point while I was in high school, they implemented a no headphone policy, right? So you couldn't have headphones like around your neck or whatever out in class, right? And so he heard that and he's like, okay, I'd like to play with this, So for a few days, he did this for a few days to make sure everyone got the experience of seeing him do this. He put on a big... Fuck you. He put on a big pair of headphones and carried a muffin around and plugged the headphones into the muffin. A real muffin, just in the muffin right there, right in the blueberry, right? And when teachers would ask him like, hey, you need to take off your headphones. And he's like, but I am just listening to my iMuffin. Now that one, they let him get away with, probably because that was a little scary. They're just like, I'm not messing with that. I got enough to worry about as a fucking high school teacher. Let me just let him do that. Let me just let him enjoy that, whatever that is, But I love this guy, because, in general, in general, I'm not a huge fan of like, just in general, I'm not a huge fan of like trolling or pranks, you know. But I am a fan of just anything done with taste, you know, and those were some little trolls, right, that I think were done quite tastefully, right? Nobody got hurt, you know, they were both like funny enough that it wasn't that annoying, you know. It gave me memories that last forever. So yeah, I just want to tell you a little about this character, this little mythical creature who let me borrow Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in high school and thereby introduced me to my favorite book series of all time, hands down, to this day. Okay? So that's that. Now let's get into talking a little bit more about these stories and what I have over here on the shelf here. So as soon as I could, I got my hands on my own omnibus, and I opted to go full out and get the nice big Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Bible. Okay? Super Bible, leather or faux leather bound, you know, gold, you know, gold pages. Yeah, I love this thing. I've pored over this. It's like, it is kind of like my Bible. It's something that it's like a pilgrimage, you know. At least once a year, I find myself like, you know, reading through all of it, and at other moments just picking it up and going to a random spot and just jumping in, and just like watching, you know, just like rewatching a movie many times over. The film doesn't change, but you change. And so the work, the creative work becomes kind of a mirror as your feelings change, and certain things you liked more when you were younger, certain things you resonate more with as you're older, you know, and I love that. And this is one of my favorite things to go back and look at. I just adore it. I just absolutely adore it to no end. And like I mentioned earlier, the reasons I like it so much, first of all, the sense of humor is perfect. The sense of humor is my absolute favorite kind of sense of humor. Just the perfect stew of humor with just the perfect amount of dryness. God, it's just like a good wine. The perfect amount of dryness, the perfect amount of silly, you know, the perfect amount of clever. It just all just blends together into things that I just find so fucking funny and pleasant and enjoyable and thought-provoking at the same time. It's just a perfectly balanced work. And it's also one of these cases where Douglas Adams, he didn't really want to write a lot of this, you know? He wanted to write, it's like the Sherlock Holmes situation, where he wanted to write the first one, and it was so wildly successful that there was a huge demand to continue writing more. But he didn't hate writing them, but there was just other things that he wanted to do, and he just felt that this kind of obligation he felt to continue to write more of these books that everyone loved, he just felt it like it was just kind of getting in the way. Like, it was just kind of a bummer, like I have to put these things that I'm very interested in on hold so that I can finish up my obligation to finish this novel and finish that novel, right? Which is very interesting because I love all of the books. So in order, if you're not familiar, it's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, Life, the Universe, and Everything, So Long, and Thanks for All the Fish, and mostly Harmless. Okay? Now, Oddly enough, my favorite book, I think, is the last one. I love all of these books so much, but mostly Harmless is my favorite, and I'll tell you why a little bit. Because there is kind of this emotional journey throughout the books that I've noticed. The books start out pretty chaotic. You know, lots of things are happening right after the other, one right after the other. Lots of chaotic things, and our main character, Arthur Dent, just a run-of-the-mill, middle class, nothing too remarkable Englishman, right? Is whisked away into the galaxy, into space, away from his home, which is destroyed, to make way for a hyperspace bypass route from the epitome of bureaucratic societies, the Vogons, right? And he is, whisked off his planet into just an absolute stream of bewildering chaos as he travels with his friend Ford Prefect, an alien from from a planet somewhere in the vicinity of Betelgeuse, okay, who is a writer, a field writer for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is what it sounds like. It is a guide for navigating hitching rides while traveling through the galaxy, right? And the origin of this book is that Douglas Adams was once kind of an adventure-y, little bit of a bohemian hitchhiker himself. And back in the day, you could find hitchhiking guides to different places, right? And so he was hitchhiking around England, I think, with his little hitchhiker's guide to the area that he was in. And one day he was in a field, looking up at the stars, stargazing, and had the thought to himself, gosh, if there was only a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I'd be off like a shot, right? Just that longing for adventuring out into the wild unknown on the seat of your pants, right? So yeah, the first two books are just one thing after the other. For our main character Arthur Dent, there's never a break. There's no time for processing, right? It's just, before you have time to think about what just happened, the next crazy thing is happening, right? One wild thing after another. And same into the restaurant at the end of the universe, right? Just one thing after the other. And then it starts to slow down a little bit in life, the universe, and everything. Arthur is alone on prehistoric Earth for a very long stretch of time, just sitting with himself, thinking of the possibility of maybe I'll just lose my mind. Maybe that's what I should do, And as Ford Prefect would say, it's not a bad idea to lose your mind every once in a while if you need to. Just let it go, catch up with it later, right? So it starts to slow down a little bit. There's at least some time for him to process some of these things that have occurred. It starts to get a little crazy again, right? But then in So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, suddenly it turns into a very touching, grounded love story between Arthur and this woman named Fenchurch. Why is she named Fenchurch? Because she was conceived at Fenchurch Station in England. So they named her Fenchurch, Fenny for short. Which if I ever have a dog, I'm naming it Fenny. You better believe it. I don't know if I can convince my wife to let me do that, but that is my desire. Anyway. And then, by the last book, it really slows down. And And I just love it after all this chaos has occurred. At the end of the day, it's just about friends and loved ones, just their lives intertwining together in interesting ways, brought together by the stupidest of forces. If you know, you know about why they all end up back together at the end. And I will spoil the ending right now at the end of Mostly Harmless because it's my favorite ending. Well, I think I've said this before, that it's my favorite ending of anything ever. It's one of my favorite endings, if not my favorite ending, is that every single character that we've come to know and travel with and relate to, they all die. They all die. They not only all die, but every single version of them across infinite alternate dimensions and timelines die as well, which has to be Douglas Adams saying, seriously, I'm fucking done. Everyone is dead. I set it up so that there is no possible way that time travel, dimensional travel, alternate timelines, none of that can bring any of these characters back. They are firmly and resolutely fucking erased from existence. I am done. There's other shit I want to do. That has to be why he did it. But regardless, I love it all the same. It seems to it's this interesting case that seems, despite his desire not to be writing these books, he just kept every decision he made was the coolest, most fun decision that could be made, So maybe that's a formula. Maybe if you want to make great art, make sure it's something that you don't want to do. I don't know. It seemed to work for him. Okay. So yes, there's this beautiful emotional journey throughout the books. It starts bright and colorful and chaotic and wild and interesting. And it flows into just a nice grounded, sweet love story, It's like the book grows a little bit, It's very pleasant. It's very nice. Yeah, gosh darn. And yeah, before I show you some of the other things I have in my collection here, because I did embark on a mission to collect everything I could that was related to Douglas Adams, so I have a few interesting pieces over here. But I'll tell you just a couple interesting things. So I love these stories so much that I wanted to do whatever I could to engage with them more deeply. And so a few things I did when I was in high school, there's like a song in the book that's written out. It's kind of like a shanty, like a jaunty bar song, and it's about how the problems with teleportation, right? That it gives you a horrible headache. You might show up on the other side missing an arm, and so it's a little song. And so me as a musician, I was like, oh, let me make a version of this song, So I got together with a friend and we sang it together, and it was fun. Aldebaran's great, okay, Algol's pretty neat. Beetlejuice is pretty girls, will knock you off your feet. They'll do anything you like, real fast or real slow. But if you have to take me apart to get there, I don't wanna go. Take me apart, what a way to roam. But if you have to take me apart to get there, I'd rather stay home. Right? And then also, if you have perused my YouTube channel, you might notice that I went to great lengths to record the best audiobook like the best quality audiobook that I could for the prologue and chapter 1 of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, of the first book. I pulled out all the stops, okay? I made original music, right? Like I made original ambient music as like a music bed, right? I did my own cover of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy theme, which is based off of a song by the Eagles called Journey of the Sorcerer that they used for the movie and they used for the television show, and I think the radio play as well, okay? I did all the character voices. I did sound design, like specific sound effects for, specific things, and just ambient sound effects. I made an original version, or not an original version. I made my own like cover arrangement of another like bar song from the first chapter. I pulled out all the stops for two reasons. One, I always wanted to do that, because I knew what everything should be like. I knew how the lines should be delivered, right? I've read these books so many times. I know exactly how to properly capture the vibe of the book and why it's so special. I know how to capture that essence and communicate it. So I always wanted to do that. I also love doing all that stuff. I love doing voices. I love doing sound design. I love it all so much. And then also, I also just wanted an example of an audiobook just in case I ever needed something like that, just in case there was ever a job or a gig that, because I would love to do that, I would love to make that I'd love to do that for money, So I just wanted to have a couple of examples, just in case I ever needed to show somebody a sample of something I could do, right? The reason I haven't continued to do that is because it's an insane amount of work to do it at that level, right? In order to continue to make that in any sort of timely fashion, I would have to not do anything else. And if I chipped away at it, I'd be chipping away at it forever. And I still wouldn't be able to do anything else because I don't have that much time per week to dedicate to creative stuff, Anyway, God, as much as I would love to, hey, if anyone wants to give me, if anybody wants to just hook it up with like a nice, cool, I don't know, 70 or 80 grand, got that laying around, and you want me to make a full thing for that, just every single chapter of every single book that I can just do over the course of a year, and quit my job and just lock myself in my room, and do that, throw it over. I'll do it. Throw it over. You want to cash in your change jar at the Coinstar? You got a full-size garbage can full of change you want to pass my way? I'll get it done. Yeah, seriously, like doing chapter 1 took me, I don't know, it was like 20 hours of work, to do all that stuff over the course of many days. So I just wanted to get in there and do it a little. Anyway, and then also when I was in high school and I was reading the books, there are several really interesting pieces of fictional technology that are in Hitchhiker's Guide and all throughout the stories. And I was so tickled by the concepts behind all of these things that I wanted to really get into the weeds on how they worked and wrap my head around understanding them. And so I still have these somewhere in this room on pieces of notebook paper. I very meticulously went through and described exactly how these machines worked. I drew diagrams, so for example, the infinite improbability drive, which is introduced in the first story, which is an engine for a spaceship, and And how it works is when you do feed it coordinates in space and time and dimensions. It goes wherever you want. But you press it, you engage the drive, and the ship then momentarily occupies every single point in space and time and dimensions. So for a moment, it's absolutely everywhere at once. And then when it comes out of that state, it is at the coordinates that you fed into it, right? So it can instantly hop anywhere in time and space because it just exists everywhere at once. So I had drawn like a little diagram, like, okay, here's a little grid, and here's the ship at this point in space, and the drive is activated, and now it is at all these points, and now it is at a different point after it is, turned off. And so I did that for the infinite improbability drive. I did that for the omnipotent, omniscient new version of the guide that at the end looks like a bird, a multidimensional bird. I did that for the ultimate perspective vortex. Just drawing like diagrams and just to explain it, and had this little catalog of I was just obsessed. I was just like anything I could do to get deeper into the story. I was so inspired, so engaged. Nothing had grabbed me like that before. No other book had inspired me that much before, right? Enormous inspiration. And I'd like to tell you about one of my favorite pieces of equipment or technology is the ultimate perspective vortex, which was introduced, I believe, I don't remember. It might be early in the second book, I think, or late in the first book. I think it's early in the second book. It's a torture device, right? On an abandoned planet. Okay, the whole planet has been abandoned. It fell into ruin. It was once populated. However, the economy collapsed because there was too many shoe salesmen. God, see, that's why I love this fucking book so much. Too many people were selling shoes, and it completely collapsed the economy. Most of the people left. The people that did stay behind mutated into strange vulture-like birds. Oh, I love it. And so it was a very, very sad place, a very desolate and sad place. And when they were looking for somewhere to put this torture device, they thought, what sadder, more desolate, perfect place for this thing to go? So this is where they take real bad people, right? Or at least people that are determined to be really bad. So it is a device that truly gives you a sense of perspective between the human body that you are and the entire rest of creation, the entire rest of the universe, right? And it's such an intense experience to truly see where you are, at least this body, right, is in relation to the rest of the universe, that it just completely melts their brain. They just can't, they're just effectively dead. And it was invented, it was invented by a gentleman who his wife would always nag him when he would get obsessed with doing like a hobby or a little project, a little side thing. He had all these little inventions, and his wife would always get on his case, to just do some actual productive work, to get a real job or anything like that. And she would always say to him, come on, darling, have a sense of perspective here, to try to nag him, to get him to do something more productive. So he decided to show her what having an actual sense of perspective would really be like. And so he built the total perspective vortex and put her in the machine and gave her actually what a sense of perspective would be. Accidentally didn't know it would kill her. Wasn't trying to kill her. But yeah. And I love how this machine is said to work because it said since every point, every feature of the universe, since everything is inherently connected, right? Everything is features of a whole, that you can extrapolate the entire rest of the universe from any one piece of it, from any one feature of it, I should say. And so the whole machine runs on a small piece of cake, right? They extrapolate the entire universe from a small piece of cake. Show that. Give someone an actual sense of the entirety of the universe and show them their body in relation to that, their ego essentially in relation to that. And the experience is so mind-meltingly intense that it at first completely horrifies them, and then their mind can't deal with it, and then they die, right? So just so much fun. So much humor built into everything, while also being kind of metaphysical, right? A piece of fictional technology with a hilarious backstory, right? A dark usage and a metaphysical way of functioning, you know? How rad. That's why I love it. That's the mix we get. That's the beautiful balance we get throughout the story. Silliness mixed with sadness, mixed with metaphysics, mixed with philosophy, mixed with just stupid nonsense. You know, it's so much fun. So much fun. All right, let me see here. Okay. So yeah, I've got my big Bible. I'll show you a few things here and we'll see what else we can talk about. Now, whenever I'm at thrift stores, if I see anything Douglas Adams, anything related to Hitchhikers, anything related to Douglas Adams, I get it 100% of the time. So some things I've picked up. I've got an individual copy of The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. I believe this is a first pressing. And let's read some stuff that's on it. So on the back here, it's science fiction, and it's extremely funny. A rare and precious conjunction in a field where what usually passes for humor is a bad pun at the end of a dull story. There's nothing dull about The Guide, which is inspired lunacy that leaves hardly a science fiction cliché alive. From the Washington Post. Very simply, this book is one of the funniest science fiction spoofs ever written, with hyperbolic ideas folding in on themselves. School Library Journal. The feckless protagonist, Arthur Dent, is reminiscent of Vonnegut's Heroes, and his travels afford a wild satire of present institutions. File it somewhere between Monty Python and the Sirens of Titan. Chicago Tribune. Extremely funny. Inspired lunacy. Over much too soon, but don't panic. There's a sequel on the way, right? I think those are raised for the Hitchhiker's Guide, so those are like on The Restaurant at the End of the Universe here. Here we go. Just when you thought it was safe to go back to the bookstore, Douglas Adams presents The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. The time, infinity. The place, the universe. The survivors, Arthur Dent, Earthling, a mild-mannered, out-to-lunch space traveler searching the cosmos for a decent cup of tea. Ford Prefect, alien, unflappable researcher for that most successful and useful book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Trillion, Earthling, sexy space cadet who gave Arthur the cold shoulder at a cocktail party. She is now the girlfriend of Zaphod Beeblebrox, alien, two-headed, three-armed, ex-head honcho of the universe. Woo! This fantastic foursome encounters paranoid androids, existential elevators, improbability drives, and kilo-zap blasters on an interstellar romp that takes them from a 30-megaton rock concert on Kakrafoon to Milliways, the restaurant at the end of the universe, where the main dish of the day introduces itself and the floor show is Doomsday. How will it all end? Will they discover the origin of the bathtub? Will they find the significance of gin and tonic? Will they find out the question to the answer 42? For the answers to these and other cosmic questions, climb aboard Douglas Adams' zany spaceship and get ready to blast off. Take an improbable ride. Your table is ready at the restaurant at the end of the universe. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was a #1 bestseller in England, a cult classic in the United States, a weekly radio series with millions of fanatic listeners, and is soon to be a television spectacle on both sides of the Atlantic. The restaurant at the end of the universe is the all-new adventures of the Hitchhiker's crew, whether you are already a Douglas Adams fan or are just now finding out about this unique universe. Don't panic. And don't forget to bring a towel. And then we have a lovely picture of good old Mr. Adams, smiling his beautiful smile. What a treasure. Douglas Adams was born in Cambridge, England, and attended St. John's College at Cambridge University. After graduation, he spent several years contributing material to radio and television shows, including Monty Python. He has also worked as a hospital porter, barn builder, chicken shed cleaner, bodyguard, and radio producer. He is not married, has no children, and does not live in Manhattan. That is, all of that, right? That is a recipe for sucking someone like me in. They are getting right in my brain and firing those neurons, okay? And it's interesting that someone framed this as like a sci-fi parody. I honestly never saw it as a sci-fi parody. I just saw it as a science fiction book with humor. A science fiction, humor book, you know? It never seemed just like a parody because it's plenty sci-fi. It's plenty sci-fi. It's plenty straight up sci-fi. Like what? It's just because it's humorous, it has to be like a parody. It doesn't really seem that way. I never saw it that way, but I guess you could see it that way, of course. So yeah, I like having that. I found my favorite book at some point. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the jacket. I forgot where I found it. But yeah, we got Mostly Harmless. Love it to pieces. See if there's anything I can read you in here. There's a little thing that before the book really gets started. Anything that happens, happens. Anything that, in happening, causes something else to happen, causes something else to happen. Anything that, in happening, causes itself to happen again, happens again. It doesn't necessarily do it in chronological order, though. These books were an enormous influence on my sense of humor and my writing style, my sensibilities for humor. I love it to pieces. Everything about it resonates with me immensely, okay? And then we have the original Hitchhiker's Guide, right? Individual Hitchhiker's Guide. Big, nice picture of Douglas Adams on the back, right? Lovely. Here, let's read this here. How shall we begin? This is the story of a book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Not an Earth book, never published on Earth, and until the terrible catastrophe occurred, never seen or heard of by any Earthman. Nevertheless, a wholly remarkable book. Or, this is the story of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a #1 bestseller in England, a weekly radio series with millions of fanatic listeners, and soon to be a television spectacle on both sides of the Atlantic. Or, this is the story of Arthur Dent, who seconds before Earth is demolished to make way for a galactic freeway, a hyperspace bypass route, is plucked off the planet by his friend Fort Prefect, who has been posing as an out-of-work actor for the last 15 years, but is really a researcher for the revised edition of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Together they begin on a journey through the galaxy, aided by quotes from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, with the words "Don't Panic" written on the front. A towel is about to be the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can have. In their travels, they meet Zaphod Beeblebrox, the two-headed, three-armed ex-hippie and totally out-to-lunch president of the galaxy. Trillian, Zaphod's girlfriend, formerly Tricia McMillan, whom Arthur once tried to pick up at a cocktail party. Marvin, a paranoid android, a brilliant but chronically depressed robot. Veet Vujagig, former graduate student obsessed with the disappearance of all the ballpoint pens he bought over the years. To find the answers to these burning questions, why are we born, why do we die, and why do we spend so much time in between wearing digital watches, read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but remember, don't panic, and don't forget to bring a towel. Right, so much fun. So much fun. I wonder, so this one belonged to my mother-in-law. Let's see. This might also be a first edition. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, this one belonged to my mother-in-law, which she had back in the day. Something else I found at a thrift store and had to get was the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy audiobook on CD, narrated by Stephen Fry. Come on. It's Stephen Fry. Get with it. Get it in your head, So I had to pick that up. How cool is that? That's a lot of fun. Okay? Oh, gosh. And I'll say this now. I could talk about different things about hitchhikers, different parts of the story that I love. I could talk about it ad infinitum forever. Till all is blue, I could talk of hitchhikers, right? So I'll probably come back and maybe dive in more specifically to certain things, certain moments, discuss the story from some different angles, right? So I'll just speak generally today about some of the things that come to mind, some of my memories, and just Douglas Adams. So now, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series is not the only thing that Douglas Adams wrote. Another one of his big things that he wrote was Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, and the sequel to that, The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, okay? And I have that as an omnibus here, both books together, right? Nice big old thick book. I love these so much as well. They are so good. Everything that Douglas Adams writes, no matter what it is, you can tell he wrote it. He is ridiculously characteristic. The way that the similes he uses, right? The vocabulary, the pacing, the humor, no matter what he writes, it is there. It's in the same way as a characteristic singer or a characteristic musician. As soon as they start playing, as soon as they start singing, you're like, that's them. Can't mistake it. This ain't no Coke and Pepsi challenge, This is extremely characteristic. And yeah, same thing here. Just that same beautiful, beautiful blend of thought-provoking, metaphysical concepts blended with extremely grounded, silly humor, and everything done in such a relatable way. And one of my favorite things about his style is that it draws attention on just the basic absurdity of reality. how the ways in which things fit together, because everything does fit together. You bet your life on that. But the ways in which it does, it's not always clean. And it's not always deep. You know? If something huge happens, right? A major event, right? You would think that the reasons behind that major event, right, were significant, were heavy, were weighted, right? You would assume that what led to that big thing was dramatic, you know, was serious. But sometimes when you actually find out what the real truth is behind some major event, right? Something that might change the world, change society, right? Sometimes it's real dumb. If you really knew what was deep down there, sometimes it's just stupid, you know, and it's just forgotten, you know, and that comes through a lot in his work, and sometimes it's vice versa. Sometimes there's major events, right, from one perspective, right, that go entirely noticed at a different level. One of my favorite things in Hitchhikers was this civilization of this alien civilization who at some point there was like a small tear in like the space-time continuum, and a little like message got through. There was like an insult about someone's mother, and it was just heard in an otherwise very serious like negotiation between warring races of people, or warring nations of people, and it just like seeped in through the ether, this insult, and they had thought they had said it about each other, and so they went to war for ages. And at some point they found out that it came from out in space, so they just got in spaceships and just started, you know, hurtling themselves into space to find out where this insult had come from. And they came upon Earth, because I think that's where it came from. It's, you know, transmitted through, you know, channels of the space-time continuum. And they happen upon Earth, and they hurtle towards the planet, right, to attack it. But they neglected to realize the massive like difference in size and scale of their civilization to the Earth environment, and so I think they all got eaten by a dog, like their whole society, you know. So it's just stuff like that, just these massively huge, you know, ages-long events, these very serious things that at the end of the day just wink out of existence. No one even knows them, you know? And so that's my favorite thing about all these stories, is that they give you this, they kind of point to reality in a very honest way, and they give you this sense of reality that at the end of the day, it is just a joke. It is just a laughing, you know, because when you really get down to it, at the center of everything, it's just nonsense, you know, it's nonsense. And I don't even know if he was trying to do that. Maybe he was. Maybe he had a feeling. Some of us do go around with a feeling of this, you know. And it does get expressed intentionally and unintentionally in people's creative works, and in the way they talk to other people, and the way they see the world, and that kind of thing. But that's my favorite thing, and that comes through again in Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, where here we have a detective, right, who solves cases based on the knowledge that everything is interrelated, right? And so he solves these cases just by like realizing that everything has a significance, that everything that is happening in the world is in one way or another pointing him in the direction of figuring out these problems. So like everything's a clue. And so he just goes around just like following his intuition as it leads him, bumbling from one thing to the next. And so again, you have these fascinating characters that Douglas Adams likes to explore. Of they're kind of idiots, but they're kind of brilliant. You know, it's like that great quote: "Never underestimate the ingenuity of complete fools." You know. Which is just so much fun. Because that's what real people are like. Everyone is a walking contradiction, flowing between different states. You know, flowing into like, oh, they're flowing into being an asshole. Oh, they're flowing away into being wholesome. Oh, they're flowing into being really smart. Oh, they're flowing into being stupid. You know, it's just we're just these patterns in constant states of flux. You know, and so. And so there's a humanity to that. There's a real aliveness, a liveliness to that, which is so much fun. So yeah, I highly recommend, if you're a fan of Douglas Adams, to please read these as well. I've reread these a few times as well, and they just keep getting better. They just keep getting better as I read them. Now, there was a series, like a streaming series, of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency with what's that guy's name who was Frodo? I forget. You know who I'm talking about. Pardon my ignorance. Elijah Wood, right? Yeah. I got it, man. It came in. My brain's working. It's functioning. And you know what? It was pretty good. It is not based off of the stories in the books, but it captured the vibe pretty well, I thought, and it had a fun story and it had a good humor to it. So I would recommend that as well. It was very fun, I thought. But yeah, the books are incredible. They're so much fun. I'll tell you a couple things that stay with me. In the first book, we're introduced almost immediately to a character who's an electric monk, right? Who is he's from an alternate timeline, or like an alternate dimension. Who the sentient beings have continued to outsource every single need they have to robots and computers. Even their need for philosophy and an understanding of the universe and an understanding of themselves. So he's an electric monk, which I just love. And then, and for God's sakes, in the second book, there's we're hanging out with Thor, God of Thunder. We're traveling to Usgard. It's wild. It's so much fun. And I love the way that in the second book, he decides to describe the act of traveling between these different dimensions, traveling between like our reality and the reality of Usgard and these other places, or Ausgard, right? And they ask Thor, how do you get to this place? And he's like, there are as many ways to travel as there are molecules in the universe, right? Tiny things. And so, yeah, the way that it's described is just that, like, from any small point in space, right? Any molecule, atom, whatever, right? Atomos, uncuttable, right? That every point in space is a nexus, a circus. not the fun not the fun big top circus, but like Piccadilly Circus, right? A hub, right? A nexus point, a meeting point of all possibilities, all different dimensions, whatever you want to call them, right? And so when they travel between these dimensions, it's almost more just like a perspective switch, right? Where they kind of turn the universe inside out around a single point in space, you know? It's just, there's like beauty to that, you know? It just like, it gets like juices flowing in your brain, you know? There's something about that that's so beautiful, you know? And so that's something that always stuck with me too. But these are incredibly fun reads with just an incredible sense of humor. So much fun. Highly recommended. Let's see if there's anything to read in here. Dirk Gently is a detective. Well, a sort of detective. There is a long and honorable tradition of great detectives, and Dirk Gently does not belong to it. Sherlock Holmes observed that once you have eliminated the impossible, then whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Dirk Gently, however, does not like to eliminate the impossible. In Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency, a simple search for a missing cat reveals 2 ghosts, a dodo, an electric monk, the devastating secret that lies behind the whole of human history and threatens to bring it to a premature close, and finally, the utterly terrifying reason why Richard Macduff has a sofa stuck on his stairs for 3 weeks. As the long, dark tea time of the soul opens, a passenger check-in desk at Terminal 2 Heathrow Airport shoots up through the roof, engulfed in a ball of orange flame. The usual people try to claim responsibility. However, no rational cause can be found for the explosion. It was simply designated an act of God. But why, thinks Dirk Gently? Which God? And why? What God would be hanging around Terminal 2 of Heathrow Airport trying to catch the 1537 to Oslo? Funnier than Psycho, more chilling than Jeeves Takes Charge, shorter than War and Peace. For the first time in one deliciously affordable hardcover volume, the 2 Dirk Gently novels, Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency, and the long, dark tea time of the soul. Okay? Okay. So much fun. Highly recommend it. And actually, I don't think I've noticed this before. Is that right? No, never mind. Forget it. Just fucking forget it, man. Who cares? All right, what else we got over here? All right, well, we got to take a look at this. This is not a piece of fiction, okay? Here we have Douglas Adams' Last Chance to See. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Douglas Adams felt that his obligation to writing these sci-fi novels, right, kind of took him away from things he'd otherwise like to be doing. One of those things that he would otherwise like to be doing was experiencing, studying, and being involved in the world of endangered animals. There was something about endangered animals, right? Animals of bygone eras who didn't seem to quite fit in to the modern environment of the world. And so their numbers have decreased and they were just slowly fading away. And there was something that just grabbed him about this. There was something that just sparked his imagination, inspired him, right? It just grabbed him. And so he had the chance to go on several expeditions with this gentleman, Mark Carwardine, to go and experience firsthand some of these endangered animals in the world. And it was his job. I think it was a team of, they had, someone to take pictures. They had someone to plan these expeditions. And then there was Douglas Adams, whose job was to experience these things and write about them in the way that only he could. And it was in this book, which again, if you like Douglas Adams, you should read it. It was in this book that I realized that the way he wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the way he wrote Dirk Gently, the way he wrote everything, all his works of fiction, that it wasn't a front. It wasn't a character, really. He wasn't putting on a style for these books. This is just really what it feels like inside his head. This is just what it sounds and looks like when he writes, because this is a work of nonfiction. Yet it has the exact same vibe and humor and metaphysical insight as his works of fiction. Excuse me. And it was so much fun. Because this is something that he really wanted to do. He really wanted to be there. This wasn't something he was begrudgingly doing to satisfy readers and to make money. This was a passion. This was something he really, really, truly was interested in. And so there's some lovely pictures. There's some lovely pictures in here. He went to see the silverback gorillas. He went to see Komodo dragons. Yep, more Komodo dragons. Yep, more silverbacks. This is a picture of a tracker that they got involved with to look for cockapoos, right? And I don't know if you can see it, but in order to hold the cockapoo in place, he has to let it bite its finger. That's what kind of subdues the animal and calms it. And he was biting it quite hard to the point where it was bleeding, but he just held firm there. Yeah, they went and saw dolphins, and here's good old Douglas Adams, happy as a fucking clam, hanging out in the jungle on his little adventures. So let's read the back here. Douglas Adams has taken millions of readers on wild excursions through time and space in his best-selling Hitchhikers trilogy and Dirk Gently novels. Last Chance to See continues this tradition, but the time is now, and every word is true. Douglas Adams and zoologist Mark Carwardine took off around the world in search of exotic, endangered creatures. What they found will by turns amuse, fascinate, and touch you. Join Adams and Carwardine as they encounter the animal kingdom in its stunning beauty, astonishing variety, and imminent peril. The giant Komodo dragon of Indonesia, the helpless but lovable cockapoo of New Zealand, the blind river dolphins of China, the white rhinos of Zaire, the rare birds of the, I don't know how to say this, Mauritius Island in the Indian Ocean, hilarious and poignant, as only Douglas Adams can be. Last Chance to See is an entertaining and arresting odyssey through the Earth's magnificent wildlife galaxy. Very, very nice. I'm going to see if I can find something. Hold tight. Okay, I think I found what I was looking for here. So this is in the chapter where they're going to see the Komodo dragons. And this is a great example of this balance that I've been talking about that's so hypnotizingly wonderful about Adam's work between grounded, funny humor and like really high-level, thought-provoking insight, at the same time. Just really covering the whole spectrum of of being alive. But here, let's read this here. Okay, so a Komodo dragon came kind of nearby where they were hanging out, and then scurried off into the woods, and they wanted to go after it to check it out because there was kind of like where they were at, there was kind of like a Komodo dragon show where they would do like a live feeding. But they had just got there and a Komodo dragon came kind of close. They wanted to see one in a more kind of natural, just kind of doing its thing, not kind of giving like a performance, All right, so with a lot of after you, we ran carefully toward where it had disappeared and arrived breathless and a little nervous. We peered in. The undergrowth covered a large bank, and the dragon had crawled up the bank and stopped. The thick vegetation prevented us from getting closer than a yard to the thing, but then we weren't trying terribly hard. It lay there quite still. Protruding from between its jaws was the back end of the chicken, its scrawny legs quietly working the air. The dragon lizard watched us unconcernedly with the one eye that was turned toward us, a round, dark brown eye. There is something profoundly disturbing about watching an eye that is watching you, particularly when the eye that is watching you is almost the same size as your eye, and the thing it is watching you out of is a lizard. See? And that's what I'm talking about. The way, I'll just take a moment here. That's what I'm talking about. How Douglas Adams decides to write is it's so unique, and it's so much fun. So just there's so many other ways to say that, but only he says it like that. It's very similar to one of my favorite things from Hitchhikers, where the ships hung in the air much in the way that bricks don't. Right? What an amazing way to describe what's going on. It just hits perfectly. It gives you the exact picture of what these things look and feel like, and that's one of the main reasons I love them, right? And so here we have another great example. There is something profoundly disturbing about watching an eye that is watching you, particularly when the eye that is watching you is almost the same size as your eye, and the thing it is watching you out of is a lizard. The lizard's blink was also disturbing. It wasn't the normal rapid reflex movement that you would expect from a lizard, but a slow, considered blink which made you feel that it was thinking about what it was doing. The back end of the chicken struggled feebly for a moment, and the dragon chomped its jaw a little to let the chicken's struggles push it further down its throat. This happened a couple more times until there was only one scrawny chicken foot sticking ridiculously out of that creature's mouth. Otherwise, it did not move. It simply watched us. In the end, it was us who slunk away trembling with an inexplicable cold horror. Why? We wondered as we sat in the terrace cafeteria and tried to calm ourselves with 7-Up. The three of us were sitting ashen-faced as if we had just witnessed a foul and malignant murder. At least if we had been watching a murder, the murderer wouldn't have been looking at us impassively in the eye as he did it. Maybe it was the feeling of cold, unflinching arrogance that so disturbed us. But whatever malign emotions we tried to pin onto the lizard, we knew that they weren't the lizard's emotions at all, only ours. The lizard was simply going about its lizardly business in a simple, straightforward, lizardly way. It didn't know anything about the horror, the guilt, the shame, the ugliness that we, uniquely guilty and ashamed animals, were trying to foist on it. So we got it all straight back at us, as if reflected in the mirror of its single unwavering and disinterested eye. Subdued with the thought that we had somehow been horrified by our own reflection, we sat quietly and waited for lunch. Right? So that's what I'm talking about. Simultaneously hilarious, dark, honest, and metaphysical. Right? It's a beautiful thing. You know, and that's what Adams did. He saw the world in this beautiful, multi-layered way, you know, and was able to express it. And my favorite creative expressions are ones that don't take themselves seriously, and Douglas surely never did, which is why there was always a layer of humor in everything, because there is always a layer of humor in everything in life. No matter what, it's there. Because this whole thing is a damn joke. This whole thing, again, is a laughing. It is the undulations of laughter, right? So much fun. And what a beautiful insight, right? That us as uniquely ashamed, guilty animals, right, are watching this grotesque, instance of this animal being eaten alive by this monstrous lizard. Lizard's not giving it a damn thought. It's just having a snack. Doesn't care that this thing is alive and wiggling and suffering. It's hungry and it's eating. That's what it does. And it's looking at these humans. And so all the humans' guilt, right? It's just bouncing back at them, reflected in its unwavering eye, unwavering, disinterested eye, right? It's beautiful. It gives me goosebumps, you know? And that's why Douglas Adams is the man. Because he sees the world, he sees everything in this way and has the ability to express it, which is, why he's a damn treasure. All right? So, Last Chance to See, highly recommended. Now, Douglas Adams, unfortunately, has passed, of course, okay? I'll mention this very quickly. This is a book called The Salmon of Doubt. And now Douglas Adams loved himself computers. He loved writing his own programming. Some of that seeped into his stories. Some of his knowledge of working with computers seeped into his stories in fun ways. And some of the interesting kind of metaphysical insights that he observed with working with computers and programming also seeped its way into his stories. But this book is the result of diving deep into his hard drives on his Macintosh computers, which he loved himself an old Macintosh computer. This is a result of digging into his hard drives and pulling out a bunch of random stuff, just looking in all the corners of the proverbial basement and attic, and putting it all together. So we had something else to look at after he died, you know. And so this is fun. This is some like deep dive stuff. Like if you really like Douglas Adams, you'll find yourself with this. And then we'll end on something goofy and fun. Okay. Douglas Adams got together with John Lloyd, and they made a project together called The Meaning of Liff, where they attempted to make up words for feelings and situations that did not have a word in the English language. A very, very fun idea, because that is, there are so many examples of that. There are feelings and concepts and ideas and archetypal situations and things like that, for example, there are words for in Japanese, but there are no words for in English. And those kind of things, on the one hand, are what make experiencing different languages and cultures amazing and fascinating, because our experience is dictated and limited so much by our language, right? Our language almost, in a way, shapes what reality looks and feels like, right? If you talk differently and think differently, the world is different, right? And you can dig into that pretty deeply, and you'll find that it's accurate. I guarantee you. And so, yes, on the other hand, it's kind of a shame, right? Because there's feelings that go completely unnoticed, that are totally exist, but go completely unnoticed because we just don't have a word for it. It just remains this wordless mystery. You know, it's something, we see something and we're like, oh, there's something about that just, I don't know. You know, but in another language, they're like, oh yeah, that's that. You know? And then, of course, that, on the one hand, sometimes, like a mystery, is kind of nice. It's nice to experience something just as a feeling, because when something does become a word, then it kind of, no pun intended, it kind of becomes like written off. We start taking it for granted. So it's an interesting area. And regardless, a very fun thing for them to get together and have some fun with and do. And so I have both like editions of this. I have this, here it is, The Meaning of Liff. And I have the deeper Meaning of Liff, okay? I mistakenly thought I thought the deeper Meaning of Liff was going to be an entirely different book with just more words, but it was just the same exact book with a couple editions. So screw it. So I have both. I'll anything with Adam's name on it, I want. So fuck it. Love it. So yeah, let's just read a few of these. Let's have some fun. I'm just going to go randomly. They're all a lot of fun. Okay. I randomly went to K. Let's check out some Ks. Kalami, the ancient Eastern art of being able to refold roadmaps. Keel, the horrible smell caused by washing ashtrays. Kent, politely determined not to help despite a violent urge to the contrary. Kent expressions are seen on the faces of people who are good at something, watching someone else who can't do it at all. Okay, some more random stuff. Skullet, the last teaspoon in the dirty dishes. Semi-null, congealed deposits found inside a wound socket. Okay, it's sometimes he makes references to other words that they made up. Scrabster, a dog that mounts your leg during tea. Scraptoff, the absurd flap of hair a vain and balding man grows long above one ear to comb plastered over the top of his head to the other ear. All right, let's skip again. Tidpit, the corner of a toenail from which satisfying little black deposits may be sprung. Tingrith, the feeling of aluminum foil against your fillings. Totting, the business of talking amiably and aimlessly to bartenders. Timble, to fall over very gently, look around to see who's about, and then yell blue murder. All right, here's some more, because these are so much fun. This book falls in the beautiful category of an amazing conversation piece, right? Just immediately accessible fun to show someone that you might have over. Such a fun thing to have on the shelf. Winkley, a lost object that turns up immediately after you've gone and bought a replacement for it. That's a good one. Wound socket. A knothole in a tree in a very secluded part of Central Park. There it is. We stumbled upon the word that he referenced. Good for us. Everything's coming together. Everything's coming up Millhouse. A root. WROOT. A short little jerk who thinks that by pulling on his pipe and gazing shrewdly at you, he will give you the impression that he is infinitely wise and 5 feet 11 inches tall. So yeah, that's the Meaning of Liff. A lot of fun. Great conversation piece. Okay, so let's wrap up. Let's wrap this. I'm going to come back to Hitchhikers in some way at some point. You better believe it. Probably in episode 42. Probably in episode 42 with a towel around my neck and all. You bet your bottom dollar, okay? But let's wrap this up today. Yeah, I just wanted to, oh God, I can't seem to overstate how much joy these books have brought into my life. How special it was when I read them for the first time. How important they are to me. How much I relate to them, relate to the humor. How much they kind of taught me, you know, about life in a strange way. You know, how much they kind of taught me just through reading them, just through the characters and their experiences. How much I learned about how to look at reality, how to experience life. You know, they were just a crucial part of my time here, you know. Major influence. Yeah, and I just wanted to go over that and just share my love, you know, for these books. And for Mr. Adams himself. Here, let me show you something. So a while ago, I decided I wanted to get a nice picture frame with enough places in it to have pictures of some of my biggest creative influences that I could have up in my studio, that I could look to just as a nice reminder of these artists who made work that was just so important to me. And yeah, so I have it right here. And as we can see, okay, we have, at this end, we have Phil Tippett, right? Not too long ago, released his enormous passion project, Mad God, but is a stop-motion claymation extraordinaire. Despite me never trying my hand at stop motion or claymation, it remains one of my most famous kind of creative expressions. What did I just say? Famous? Favorite? What the fuck word did I just say? It remains one of my most favorite kinds of creative expressions. I think it is timeless. I love it. And he did a lot of great work in that area. I love his attitude to work and to art. I love what he does. And after I saw Mad God, it was I just knew like he's going on the wall. We have Alan Watts, spiritual entertainer extraordinaire, right? Masterful weaver of words in a beautiful English accent, Queen's English all the way. Now then we get to this. What we are aware of is a complex of vibrations, and we have been conditioned to call them, graduatingly, good, bad, pleasant, painful. Whereas as a matter of fact they are nothing but vibrations. Alan Watts. We'll do a video on him later. He's excellent. And I have a lot to say about him. But anyway, for another time. Frank Zappa, a ridiculously prolific composer and musician who made music that again, had this beautiful balance of complexity, simplicity, beauty, and humor that just hit me in all the right places and formed a lot of my musical sensibilities, okay? Frank Herbert, author of Dune, weaver of worlds, okay? We've already talked about him, but yeah, he's on there. And then look who's at the end. Look who's at the end down there. The only one clean-shaven of the bunch. My man, Douglas Adams, okay? He's just up in my room. I like looking over and seeing that motherfucker, reminding me, hey, just keep going, man. Just keep making stuff, you know? So he's an absolute hero to me. And so I just wanted to go over some of my favorite memories, some of my favorite moments from the stories, but mostly just share my love for Douglas Adams and the creative work he did, and just share that feeling and passion with y'all here. Okay, so let's end it there. All right. It's a lot of fun talking about this. And yeah, this has been another episode of Sentimental Fools. All right? Okay? Always more to come. New episodes every Tuesday at 8 a.m., okay? And if you want to help me as I do all these things, right? As I make this show, as I make music, as I write, all my creative, all the things I make. If you want to help me out, there's links in the description in different ways you can do that, okay? I have a Patreon. You can go and listen to my music. You can make a donation, all that stuff. But as always, no pressure. I am just happy that you're here, all right? I appreciate you, and I'm having a good time, and I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this, motherfucker. Get out of here. Get out of the way. I appreciate you. Let me know your feelings about Douglas Adams. I love talking about this. Share with me your memories of reading these books, And if you haven't read these books, take this as a ridiculously solid recommendation to give them a shot, okay? All right. But anyway, we'll see you next time. All right? More nonsense to come next week. All right? Hang in there. Have fun. Don't go too crazy. Enjoy yourselves, okay? All right. Bye. Bye. Life. Don't talk to me about life. Bye. Bye-bye. Brain the size of a planet, and they asked me to bring you to the bridge. Bye. Bye, bye, bye. Oh, bye. Bye.